Hey guys, welcome back to the podcast. I'm your host, Kevin, as usual. I'm here in Camp McCall, North Carolina. For those who don't know, Camp McCall is kind of a special forces training base for Green Berets, psychological operations, civil affairs. And this is where portions of the qualification course happen, but it's where selection happens for all three. So there's a lot of information out there about selection, a lot of guys giving their opinion, and it's not that they're wrong, but they may be outdated, right? Guys like me went through 22 years ago. What the hell do I know about what goes on at selection now? So people ask me a lot of questions, and I don't feel comfortable answering them, but I've got the guys right here who know all the answers. So I have Command Sergeant Major Lee Strong, who is the Sergeant Major in charge of all training in Special Forces for Army Special Forces. And Lee and I are friends. We were team sergeants together, and we've known each other for a long time. And I have a previous interview with Lee. We talk about SF as broadly kind of thing, but today we're going to focus on selection. And I have Sergeant Major Chewy Almonte, who is the Sergeant Major in charge of Special Forces Assessment and Selection, the preparation course, the psychological operations selection, and civil affairs selection. So these are the two guys who know everything there is to know about this process. And we're going to walk through it step by step. We're going to give you a lot of information about preparation. Obviously, we're not going to give you all the standards, but we're going to really, really try to set you up for success. I didn't know Chewy. I've heard your name, many times over the last, 10, 15 years, but we had never met until probably last year, and I come out here a couple of times. And what you've done here and what your team have done here with selection is fantastic, because it used to be the attitude towards, trainees and candidates. It was very, very dismissive. You make it or you don't. But what you guys have done to kind of nurture that and bring it along while maintaining the standards and, counseling people who fail and kind of bringing them back and bringing them into the fold is fantastic. And it really needs to be told. The story really needs to be told. So I appreciate you both being here. Thank you so much.
No, thank you, Kevin. So feeling is mutual. I've heard your name throughout many, many years. And I'll tell you, man, the thing I was looking most forward to was just listening to that soothing accent that you have. And so amazing storyteller and, countless stories of amazing things that you've done in your time with the regiment. So,
it's the Irish thing, man.
Yeah.
Storyteller, yeah.
Appreciate you having Lee and I here.
Yep. Okay, so we've got some slides. So let's kind of walk through the process and the way I've heard you kind of brief this before. And just walk us through the process, and Lee, if you want to jump in at any point, or I do, if we're going to clarify something, but the show is yours. Should we go?
Yeah, if it's okay with you, through the process, there's something that is very important that can easily be overlooked. And that's far left of preparation in knowing what is your purpose, what's your why. So the first question you should ask yourself is, why do I want to go to Special Forces Assessment and Selection? Ultimately, why do I want to be a Green Beret? And for everybody, that is different. But because it's so difficult, because you're changing your way of life, you have to have something tangible that you can look at. So as you're going through your preparation process, you can tap back into and know, okay, this is why I'm getting up at 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning to go on this very long ruck or this long run. On days where you don't feel your best, or, you know what, I'd like to stay up and do X and play my Xbox. But if I don't go to bed right now, I am not going to be energized. I'm not going to repair my body. And so before we even get to the journey of Special Forces Assessment and Selection, or for any assessment and selection that matter, I think you need to know what your purpose or what your why is. Do you want to jump on that at all?
Absolutely agree. There's a ton of preparation and training that leads you up to day one of an assessment selection, but your purpose for coming here has to be fixed. And then, I'd say a solid foundation of intrinsic motivation and purpose to be here, in conjunction with all the training and preparation that goes into being here. When you have those hard days, day 2 of team week or that bad day at land nav, that's what you fall back on, right? Is what you brought you there in the first place, and that's what gets you through those hard days. So
Mike,
I think.
let me ask you firstly, and then I'll ask you, Chewy, because I know your story and it's awesome. So what was your pivotal moment where you're like, boom, I want to be a Green Beret?
Oh yeah.
What was yours?
Yeah. So I joined the Army right out of high school, 18 years old. I didn't really know what I was getting into, right? I knew I wanted to. I was intelligent enough to go to college. I played athletics, but single mom, 4 kids, and I was probably not going to make my way through college without either incurring a ton of college debt or quite frankly, maybe getting to college, incurring debt, and then still not passing, right? So I joined the Army for the college money. I'm about a year or two into my career in the Army, and I loved everything about the Army. You got a team. The Army gives you this kind of foundation of values, discipline, and structure, and it's really good for any young American to go into that environment. But I knew I wanted something a little more. I never heard of Special Forces. I had no idea what it was. I had other people in my unit that had entertained going to SFAS, and it was this mythical thing, And then one day I was stationed in Hawaii. I got into lifeguard training at the pool out there in Hawaii, and there was a dive team from First Group that was out there doing some training in the pool. And I remember being on the other end of the pool and seeing these guys doing some training and drills on the far end. I'd never seen anything like it. I saw these 8 or 9 guys that were just physically fit, cohesive team, doing training out there in the pool, kind of quiet, humble, keeping to themselves. At the end of that day in the pool, they were in the parking lot loading all their gear, and I went up and I talked to them. And as I'm talking to these individuals, I realize I'm talking to a master sergeant and a captain and a bunch of E6s and E7s. And in my world, young 20-year-old PFC 4, I'm thinking like, oh man, I don't talk to my first sergeant. That's an E8, and my captain is my company commander, and an E6, E7 is a platoon sergeant. And these individuals were talking to me like just a normal person. Treat me with dignity and respect and professionalism. Not that you don't get that in the Army, but there's a lot of rank and barriers there, right? And I kind of walked away with these guys are part of this cohesive team. They're physically fit. They're intelligent. They're articulate. And I want to go join that. I want to be. I want to be with that kind of organization, with those kind of individuals.
That's the best recruiting tool.
Oh, 100%.
There is. And if they'd have been dicks and treated you like badly or blew you off, you probably wouldn't be sitting here today.
Oh no.
That's that pivotal moment. Yeah. That everybody kind of hits.
But if I think with it, though, is anybody in the military, or you played sports growing up, or you joined the military, if you're looking for maybe just whatever's next, that kind of finding that purpose. But being part of an organization with people that have shared values, beliefs, behaviors, and then a high performing team, like it elevates your own game, right? But you're not just joining an organization, you're joining a culture.
You really are. Chewy, give me yours, man.
So since Lee went far left of Bang, I guess I should do the same, right? So far left of Bang is my single mother, immigrated from the Dominican Republic with 3 kids, and I'm the youngest of those 3 kids. And so I'm 7, 8 years old, and I come across my first special missions unit known as G.I. Joe, the series. And so here's this kid from the Dominican Republic, doesn't know how to speak English, and I literally learned how to speak English to G.I. Joe. And so I think that was my first take of like, man, I want to join the military. Fast forward a few years later, my older brother, who's 7 years senior to me, he joins the Army and, graduates basic training and gets to the 82nd, and he's told, hey, don't unpack your bags because we're going to war. And, 4 or 5 weeks later, he finds himself in Operation Desert Shield, Desert Storm. And so 9 months after that, he comes home. Back then, there wasn't like the elaborate R3 that we have now. You literally like went home on leave when you were gone. And I remember him dumping his duffel bags in the room that we shared as kids and seeing sand all over the room. And I grabbed his boonie cap, his desert boonie cap, and I put it on my head. It had PFC rank on it. And I was like, this is it, man. This is what I want to do. So I've always wanted to be like my big brother, Lewis. Big shout out to him. He's a retired sergeant major after 25 plus years. But that's kind of what did it for me. Just like Lee, I went out to 1st Special Forces Group. I was a mechanic there. was a construction equipment mechanic. And man, this one individual, if I could highlight, there's so many. There's Sergeant First Class Chris Shaw, who passed away in the Philippines while hitting an IED. Amazing Green Beret. Love you, Chris. Tung Nguyen, who was a friend of you two. Before he was in 3rd Special Forces Group, he was in 1st Special Forces Group, where I knew him well. And so, inspired by that guy. One guy in particular, Danny Orozco, I'll talk about him. That guy retired as the 1st Group CSM. And I met him as a staff sergeant. He was a support guy prior to coming back to be an 18 Echo. And he was the junior guy on the team. The junior guy on the team is always doing motor stables and like doing PMCS on the vehicles. And because I was a mechanic, I spent a lot of time with Danny. When I spoke to Danny, I always felt like $1 million. When he spoke to you, you had his complete attention. And sometimes I'd ask myself, I was like, man, here I am, this mechanic in 1st Group.
You're like, what's his game?
What's his game, right? What's his game? And then you realize, like, this guy's genuinely a good human being that cares about other people. And I got to tell you, I wanted to be like that guy. And there was a fleet of them. They're all that way. You would think they'd be like these arrogant, I don't know if you can say this, but I'll say it, pricks, right? And that's not the case. They were great family men. They still are. And I get to work with them every day. And so that was my why. I got a more elaborate story on it, but it's too long to tell.
Yeah, me. I saw I'm older than you guys. So I saw the British SAS storm the Iranian embassy in London live on TV in 1980 when I was a kid, and that was it for me. I was like, I don't know what that is, but it looks cool. I want to do that. That was a pivotal point for me. I didn't exactly know what I wanted to do, but I was like, that looks freaking cool, man.
Can I share a story,
Yeah,
Kevin?
absolutely.
Just, again, like when you come into Special Forces, just like I said, you're joining that culture and the relationships you get with it. And I don't think you realize it till a couple years into this career. And maybe it's because you're retired. Chewy and I are, right at the edge of retirement right now. And you start reflecting of your career, but you realize all the amazing people you meet and the relationships you built along the way. Since Chewy mentioned that Danny Orozco was somebody that encouraged him and maybe a reason that brought him here. And I want to kind of share what that looks like over a 20-plus year career. So I did not meet Danny when I was a PFC working in the motor pool at 1st Special Forces Group. I met Danny years later when I'm a 1st sergeant in Afghanistan at Siege Sodif, and you and I share that trauma
we were
together.
there, yeah.
So Danny was passing through on a PDSS, stopped through the BDOC to see the 1st sergeant to get a visitor's badge, and I had like a 10-minute conversation with this guy. And I remember, at this point, I'm a 1st sergeant. He was a company sergeant major at the time, and I just felt like, man, this is an extremely humble guy. Just had this like charisma that you wanted to be around him, you wanted to be like him, right? And that was in a 10-minute interaction. I hadn't met him ever before, and I didn't see him for probably another 3 or 4 years after that initial engagement. And he is now the first, fast forward 5, 6 years past that, he's the 1st Special Forces Group Command Sergeant Major. I'm the 3rd Group Command Sergeant Major. Danny was a more senior guy into his 2nd year of command. I was going into my 1st. And, you need a mentor. Danny really just reached out on his own to take you under his wing and kind of help guide you through this challenge. And I started to get to know Danny a little bit better. And, of course, I talked to Chewy, and Chewy tells me how he and Danny are really good friends, and they have this history. And the three of us somehow get connected. Danny came in, I think it was for a graduation or something like that. And Chewy invited us both over to his house for dinner. So we're at Chewy's house, at his dinner table, Chewy and his family, Danny Orozco and myself. And Chewy shares a story about how when he was a PFC working the head count at the dining facility at 1st Special Forces Group, Danny and his team finish PT, and they come through the dining facility to have breakfast. And Chewy sees them wearing their 185 was he on? I can't
155.
155 team T-shirt and PFC Almonte. He's like, Danny, what does a guy got to do to get a shirt like that? So Danny tells him, it's easy, man. You just gotta go to selection. You gotta get selected. You go to the Q course. You go to dive school. You get through dive team. You get one of these shirts, right? Mm-hmm. So Chewy's telling this story to Danny 20 plus years later. And Danny's just smiling the whole time, don't think any of it. Now fast forward, another 6 months goes by. I am driving in my car, and this man calls me up, and he's like, answer my phone. He's like, what are you doing? I was like, I'm driving. He's like, can you pull over and FaceTime me? So I'm like, oh, man, this is serious. Chewy's asking me to pull my car over and FaceTime him. So I pull my car off the side of the road, and I FaceTime Chewy. And he's like, from here up on the FaceTime, zoomed down his face. He's like, remember we had dinner at my house, and we mentioned this team T-shirt from Danny? And I was like, yeah. And he zooms the camera out. He's wearing this old tethered 20-plus-year-old shirt. Danny had retired, remembered that story that night, and sent Chewy that old
the same one
team T-shirt.
Oh, that's cool, man.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
But those are the relationships and the people you meet along this. That you're gonna do some cool things. You're gonna get some awesome training. You're gonna do it with amazing people and their families.
Yeah.
And that to me, when we talk about that intrinsic motivation, that why, those are the things that get you through the hard days.
Yeah.
Those are the things that make team week and a bad day at land Abbott selection worth it.
Yeah, anything worth having is worth working for, right? All right, so let's get to it.
So the short version of that is, I did it because I wanted a sweatshirt.
You did. Okay. You could have went to the PX and bought one. All right, let's get to the nuts and bolts.
Yeah.
So, boom, you're on.
I'm on. Okay. So it's important to understand, like, what are we assessing for, right? And so here it is. You're getting a peek behind the curtains. It's very simple. In 1988, Major General Guest slapped the table and said, hey, what is the foundation of what we assess for? To this day, it's still the same three things: fitness, intellect, and character. In fact, you've done a phenomenal podcast in the past, and you've talked about fitness, intellect, and character.
Yeah.
So for those out there, go look at that one. You were spot on. Thanks for coming and doing that. But fitness, intellect, and character are the three things, with character obviously being the most important thing. We have to know that the people that we select are going to be able to go to faraway places and be able to meet U.S. objectives with very little guidance. And they have to be, men and women of high character. And so fitness and intellect being also two important things. And so in that, now fast forward 2010, we developed these things called the RSOF attributes. And so the RSOF attributes, if you frame that and you think of fitness, intellect, and character as in three Lowe's buckets. I mentioned Lowe's buckets because I spent a lot of money on Lowe's, man. And so if you put those words in front of those buckets, and then you use the RSOF attributes and put them in all those buckets, right? And so when we talk about, hey, adaptability or being a team player or perseverance, personal responsibility, capability, professionalism, courage, integrity, when you show up to SFAS, our assumption is that those three buckets are filled to the brim. Now, we go do a physical fitness assessment, and maybe you run your 2-mile run in 14, 15 minutes. Brother, you spilled a whole lot of capability because there ain't no way in heck that you're going to make it through selection. You just had a very bad performance, right? And so that doesn't send you home, right? But it really hurts you. And so at the end of SFAS, fast forward 26 days later, those buckets have to be more full than empty. And so that is a good way of framing our foundation, fitness, intellect, character, with our RSOF attributes.
Yeah, I've heard you say in briefings before, like the Cadre, you brief your Cadre, and you tell them you are not assessing these candidates to be on a team. You're assessing them to start the Q course.
That's right.
And I think that's very important, right?
Yes.
Because I think in the past, Cadre did look at students and go, do I want him on my team? Well, he hasn't gone through a year and a half or 2 years of the most high-speed training in the world.
That's right.
To become that Green Beret, right?
Yeah.
And the maturity and everything that comes along. So it's very, very important. I thought that was a very important thing where you're being assessed to start the Q course. Your assessors are looking at candidates to say, do they have the potential to be a Green Beret? with all this training, right? And I think that's an important point.
Yeah.
Because it changes how you frame things, right? Because people are looking, and as we go through the standards and what works and what historically has worked for physical fitness and stuff like that, there's going to be people there going, I could never do that. I was 35 when I went through selection.
That's not true.
Yeah, absolutely, you can do it. And if you're not willing to put the work in to get physically fit, then it's probably not for you, because you're going to spend the rest of your career working out every day.
Yeah.
Sometimes twice a day. Because PT and physical fitness and eating right and taking care of your body, and all, it becomes part of your life.
Yeah, Kevin, before I want to go back, because you mentioned Cadre, and it's important that I talk about our Cadre.
Okay.
When you talk about our center of gravity, it is our Cadre and their families. Our number one must get right, not fail, is that we have to run a safe and professional course. Those two things. We have to do that. And we do that through the vehicle of our Cadre, right? And we do this unique thing, right? Another peek behind the curtain. When our Cadre first get here, one of the things that they do as part of their onboarding process, right, is that they get a snapshot of their bullseye, is what we call it. Basically, their performance, the RSOF attributes. Yes.
That's humbling.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Let me tell you.
I want to see mine.
This guy sucked. Let me tell you. But no, it lets you know and lets you reflect.
Perfect.
Hey, I was not as good as maybe I thought I was, and I've developed over the years, right? And you could kind of see it. It's, as they're walking in processing and walking throughout the company and sitting down with the non-commissioned officer in charge and getting their counseling, they are constantly looking at that piece of paper and reflecting back and trying to process all that.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea.
Yeah, and it's important, because as it goes into our methodology, and in our methodology, what we use is we use multiple observers, we use multiple events and multiple observations. And the reason that we do that is because we know that, depending on our upbringing, we may value certain things over the other, right? Mm-hmm. Like, some guy may value strength over speed, right? And so by doing it that way, then we get a holistic look on the candidate. And let me tell you, another assessor that is overlooked, probably one of the most important ones, is the fellow candidates. And so we also get a look from their point of view when they do peers.
Right. Yeah.
All right. So I do want to talk specifically, just so folks understand the experience level of the folks that are assessing them. Our Cadre population, normally they're about 34, 33 years old. They're typically married, have a couple kids, have a couple combat deployments, and about anywhere between 6-8 years in special operations. And so very experienced guys. On the back end of that, and I know we're talking specifically maybe to folks that want to come to SFAS, but I also want to take this time to talk to anyone that may be in the operational force. SFAS is extremely developmental for our Cadre as they develop to go be team sergeants. Right now, we have 3 main guys. Adam, we have a guy named Phil, and a guy named Jamie, and they run the specific phases of the qualification course. Right now, we're in day 2 of Team Week, and this guy, Phil, is managing about 12 Cadre that are managing about 161 candidates right now in a high-risk event. Brother, if that does not prepare, just process that for a second. Think about your time as a team sergeant. You also got an opportunity to serve in SWIC, and how developmental that is for you to take over a team and be a team sergeant. So.
Because if you're here as an E7, you're going back as a team sergeant. And those management skills and those hugely important, because you don't want Cadre to come here and go back less prepared, right?
Yep.
And I know you guys work on families and all that kind of thing, because a happy Cadre is a good Cadre, right?
Yeah.
Very impressed with the Cadre out here. Very, very professional. And there's a common misconception that SFAS is just weeding out as many people as possible. And that's just not true. That's not how it is.
Not
here.
true.
No, not true. You're focusing on people's strengths rather than the weaknesses,
Yes.
right? And you're giving them multiple shots, and there's multiple eyes on them. It's not like you did one thing and you're gone. When I was in selection, I think I told you this when we did a podcast, but we were unloading the truck one day in MREs. And you know, when you got 100 students and they're all lined up there and they're passing the MREs from one to the other, and there's
Yep.
physically nowhere to get in.
Yeah.
So I'm over here bullshitting with a guy in the corner, and I look over and the Cadre's looking at me and they're writing something down. I'm like, damn. So that's probably something in my records, but hey, I made it.
Let's talk about what you just said and like what, how we assess. Well, where some folks may think we are assessing and looking for things to eliminate you on, it's the absolute opposite. Mm-hmm. We are looking for redeemable qualities to demonstrate that, again, like you stated, you can successfully navigate the qualification course. That's all we're trying to get you to, that you have redeemable qualities, you're trainable. Let's get you to the qualification course, and now it's those amazing cadres during the qualification course that are going to get you to the start point of day one on a team. Mm-hmm. And then now it's Team Sergeant's job to take you and develop you into, an experienced team member. But we are always looking for redeemable qualities of why you can pass the qualification course.
Yeah, I love that attitude. I love that way to look at it. And it wasn't always like that, but that's awesome. Okay.
So we spoke about the number one thing that you have to do is you have to have purpose. Why is the first thing. And so once you have your why, now we can get into preparation. Mm-hmm. Okay. And so that's where, this little manual, actually, I'm going to ask Lee to talk about it because he was the main driving force. Maybe he'll talk about some of the amazing dudes that put it together. But, the Special Forces Preparation Handbook. Lee, can you talk about that, please?
Is this downloadable? Can I put a link on this?
It is.
So if you're on the YouTube, look at the link down below.
Yeah, it's right here on the left. Click on the left.
You can download this. Yeah.
Yeah. No, so I was going into my second year here at SWIC as a CSM, and across the Army, and not so much now. The Army met its recruiting goals last year, but recruiting became a pretty sensitive topic around the whole DoD, particularly the Army, and then we felt those same struggles here in Special Forces. So as I started looking into our recruiting numbers, on top of our recruiting numbers, it wasn't just the amount of people coming in, it was the amount of people coming in and are they successful at assessment and selections. And then you realize if we can't get enough people in and they can't make it through an assessment selection, 3-4 years down the road, that creates manning challenges for the operational force, for the Special Forces, Operational Attachment Alphas, the teams. So we started looking pretty critically into assessment selection, and we would get the end of course surveys, and we were looking at a lot at the results, but not the process, right? We were, this many people showed up, this many people got selected, and give it a percentage rate, right? And it was very easy to get drawn down the data and the numbers, but the devil was in the details. And we started looking at all the data for why people did not get selected. And when you look at the people that don't get selected, the data goes very, very wide. And I think I was sitting around one day, and I just asked the question of hey, don't tell me. It's actually Gabe, one of the guys that works here for Chewy. Gabe I think he's been here 2.5 years to this point, so he'd been seeing this repetitively for about 2 years. And I asked him in a van ride, I was like, hey, what about the individuals that get selected? And Gabe very simply answered the question, and that I noticed that the data went very narrow, very fast. And when I realized, why can't we just communicate to people what preparation looks like, what the standard is, not so much what you're going to be tested on, but hey, if you do these things, you show up at this level of preparation, you increase your chances of being selected to a very, very high percentage. So I came back from that trip, very informative trip. I think I spent about 2 days in and out of the van, several hours, just having great conversations with this individual, Gabe. And we came back, we kind of huddled up, assembled the team, and we started developing this prep guide. Because I also noticed there's a lot of people that will give you advice on how to properly prepare for assessment selection. There is nobody better to give you preparation advice than the people here at SWIC, within 1st Battalion, particularly within the ECHO Company, Assessment Selection Company. So we developed the guide. The guide really serves as a tool to kind of keep people within the within the training and preparation, that ultimately results in a higher chance of success.
What's in there? What are the big things that are in there?
Yeah, I mean, obviously the first thing is page 2 of this guide. If you just go to page 2, it gives you kind of like the baseline physical fitness standards that you should want to have.
Let's tell candidates, America.
Yeah.
Here it is in bold. Successful candidates.
Yeah. So in the introduction, it tells you, first off, our mission at SFAS is for every candidate to be successful without compromising quality, character, and standards. The average successful candidate can run a sub 1332 mile, 38 hand release push-ups, and they can also ruck a 15-minute mile at a sub 8-minute mile pace over long distances and uneven terrain, right? But page 2 kind of spells it out very, very easily. On top of just the physical metrics, it gives you a little bit about diet, sleep, nutrition, and preparation like that. But the prep guide, I think, was just our way of giving transparency and communication to people of what it takes to be successful at this course. Because 250 people show up 7 times a year. We assume all 250 came here to get selected.
Yep.
Unfortunately, not all of them were prepared to be selected.
And the data speaks very clearly, right? The people who crush physical fitness early are because physical fitness ties to everything, right? We're not really looking for what you can do on your best day. We're trying to see what you can do on your worst day when you're tired and hungry and cold, right? But if you're physically fit, those knocks take less out of you. You're sharper mentally. You know what I mean? You're better able to manage those tough days and get there and accomplish your goals because you've prepped. It's almost like, not quite, but you've almost passed or failed before you get here with your preparation, right?
100%.
It's a huge thing, yeah.
Well, I think that preparation feeds into your intrinsic motivation and purpose, right?
Yeah.
So that foundation is absolutely the character. The thing we can't compromise on ever is character. We got to select the right individuals, people of high character. The physical fitness and intellect, you can work on those and develop those over time, and that's where the preparation comes in. But ultimately, like I'll specifically talk physical fitness or physical readiness. That's where the resiliency comes in, right? If you have a higher level of physical fitness and you came here prepared, when you start having those bad weather days or you're getting beat up, you're doing land nav across the training area out here at night, tripping and stumbling, taking a fall in the woods with a 65-pound rucksack on your back is a lot like getting tackled or a lot like getting checked in hockey or things like that.
Yeah, when you wake up in the morning and you feel
You're
like
stiff
you
and
went
sore.
5 rounds of Mike Tyson, man, and your pins everywhere, you got to roll out of bed and put that ruck on again.
And that
right?
physical preparation builds that ruggedization and resiliency to be able to get through the 3 weeks of training out here. If you don't, it's going to accumulate and stack on you very, very quickly. And every day is going to be a little bit more challenging, a little more harder than it has to be.
Yeah.
So I don't want to overestimate, like, hey, this isn't this thing that's incredibly hard you can't do, but I don't want to underestimate how hard it is and how physically prepared you actually have to be.
Right.
You got to put in the work. You got to put in the work early.
Right. So download the book and get to work. Right?
Yeah, get to work, and I think this gave us a one-stop shop. You don't have to pay for it; it's free. Now we've digitized it. I don't put the pressure on CSM. I'm talking about like, hey, can we turn this into an app for young people? Because again, that it's a different generation.
Yep.
We need to talk to the new generation, and so they like these app things. And you could put maybe like what you ate, your meal plans in here, and so maybe they could record that. And so hopefully that's like the next phase. I will tell you what we are doing in the form of preparation to speak to our future candidates is that here at Assessment and Selection, we've decided to start a YouTube channel. And so at the beginning of the calendar year, we will launch the YouTube channel. The YouTube channel will have a training, education, and purpose-driven agenda behind it. In the training piece, we will talk about things, the workouts that essentially you do at the Special Forces Preparation and Conditioning course.
Yep.
Those will all be posted. We will go over lifting techniques. We'll educate. We'll talk about, hey, this is how you plot a point, and we'll talk about land navigation in specific. Yeah. We'll also talk about, hey, look, if you get a blister, this is how you manage that blister, or a rucksack. This is how you actually should load a rucksack. Because sometimes I've seen it out here. Every single class, I'll see a candidate who, man, he is strong as an ox. and that rucksack is not packed or sized appropriately. And so basically the weight that he's carrying, it probably feels like he's carrying an additional 15 pounds.
Right.
Because the load's not loaded properly. And all it comes down to is education. And so,
and students who are prepping for it, there's a one-stop shop. You don't need to search all over the internet for people who may or may not know what they're talking about. One-stop shop for all the education purpose. I know land nav is a scary one for a lot of people, but if you can get some stuff done up front, and what you're doing here, you're not lowering standards.
Yes.
You're raising the level of training.
Yes, sir.
Raising the level of preparation.
Yes, sir.
You still got to come here and accomplish all the tasks in front of you.
Yep.
I think that's great, man. I think that's a great idea.
And internally, what we wanted to do was, we talked to our candidates and we talked to our Green Berets about always getting better and being hypercritical of yourselves. You see it during our hot washes after we do a hit. Very critical. Well, that's the question that we had to ask ourselves is like, man, are we doing a good job of communicating to America? And so the fact is that we were not using all our resources, and now we're looking at doing some of those things. So,
I think there was this mystery and all that, right? About selection. You can't tell anybody anything and all that. And you still have to come in and accomplish all the tasks.
Listen,
right?
that red dot and that Sandman, it's just as heavy when you know it's coming or whether you know it's not coming. And, the specifics, we don't get into specifics because they don't really help you in knowing those things. If you prepare to just do hard things, at the end of that, you'll be at selection announcement and someone will be shaking your hand and then you'll be welcoming to the
life will change.
Qualification course.
I don't want to get too much into the numbers, but I think the guide's been out for a couple months now. We've had a few classes since publishing the guide and really focusing on preparation. But I really want to talk, one, how everybody, the team from Echo Company to our Special Forces proponent, everybody we open arms accepted preparation and transparency and communication with potential candidates. And all that work was done by the team to get to where we are. And when you come out here, though the Cadre are stoic and aloof, they want you to get selected. Those Cadre and people running this course want the students to be successful. And that's impressive to watch, even though they can't display their emotions. More importantly, I think what I noticed with this preparation, and we'll get into the numbers later, I'm sure, once we articulated what preparation and kind of what standards look like, people, they rose to that bar, man. Like all of a sudden you started seeing more high performance out of the candidates out here, and I'm sure you'll get to that. But letting somebody know what those run ruck times preparation looked like, you started seeing candidates showing up here faster and better shape. So, I think just a message outward facing from our institution to society is sometimes you don't need to make these ridiculously hard standards, but sometimes raising the bar to an achievable level and communicating that's where young Americans are going to reach to. And I was pleasantly surprised with once we put that out there, how many people showed up better prepared just by telling him what it
and
looked
you don't
like.
want people training the wrong way too, like doing too much rucking and coming here with an injury, because that's going to end badly, right? Because it's going to really exaggerate that injury very, very quickly. So we want them training properly, we want them preparing properly, and we want you to be successful.
Agree, Kevin, but I do want to state one thing. There's a huge difference between being injured and being hurt, right? Those are two vastly different things. The reality is I have not been 100% since I was 18 months old. And I'm dying every day.
Yeah, me too, bro.
I just turned 47 yesterday. Yeah,
Man,
2 days ago.
I'd love to be 47.
Yesterday, yeah.
I'd love to be 47.
Yeah, right. But it's important to talk about that in the sense that, hey, you're never going to be 100%. You have to start getting comfortable with being uncomfortable. That's the reality. SFAS and all the ANSs that we have here, POAS, CAS, they are very hard things. If they weren't, then everyone would do them, right? So in talking about specific about preparation, I want to make sure that I say this, and Lee covered some of it. Successful candidates run a sub 13:30 minute 2-mile run. They also do a minimum of 38 hand release push-ups and 12 dead hang pull-ups. What I mean by dead hang is you don't cross your legs, you hang free, You bring the bar to your chest and then back down.
Not kip-ups.
Not kip-ups, no.
And hand release, you put your chest on the ground each time.
That's right.
Push your hands out to the side
Yes.
and back up again. So you can't fake it, right? Do half push-ups.
That's correct.
Right.
And your toes are no more than a boot width apart.
Right.
That's important to know. You can't wave while you're going up. It has to. The things that I'm saying have to have perfect form. Right?
Yeah. So I'm sorry, Chewy. That's successful. That's not the standard to get in.
No.
That's what successful people can do.
Right, but I don't want to talk about what you need to do to get in because that's not what you came to SFCS for.
Right.
Which is the thing that we, again, in looking at ourselves, what we were frankly doing wrong is that we were talking about how not to lose. And that's not who we are. We're freaking winners, man.
Yeah. If you can barely make the minimum standard, you're not going to make it.
Let's talk about how to win, right? And so when you talk about, hey, I'm going to go on a 12-mile ruck, man, that's 45 pounds dry, right? Not counting your water and your lickety-chewies that you're taking with you. Man, I'd like to see you be able to crush that thing in 2 hours and 45 minutes. That gives you some good buffer time. And so the things that and then when you talk about the ACFT, our new Army fitness exam, hey, guys are doing that thing and they're scoring, in the high 570s, 580s. And so you're doing the sprint drag carry in the young man's group. You're doing that in like a minute 30, a minute 26. You're deadlifting 320 pounds. You're working on your grip strength. Grip strength is extremely important, as all the other things are, but especially when you get into team week. And so just overall fitness and being an all-around fit guy is what's going to get you to success at SFAS.
If you go to that prep guide, like I said, page 2 has the chart, and it's kind of got event frequency, and then it's got a minimum standard and the goal standard. That goal standard in big, bold print, the way I like to think of this is if you're a candidate, you're showing up and you're doing that minimum, that is like your price of entry to get here. Whereas if you show up with that goal, the big, bold print, that's like a first-class ticket. So do you want to show up to assessment selection with a price of admission, or do you want to have like a first-class ticket, courtside seats to the select formation at the end of this thing?
Yeah.
So increasing your chances of success by preparing yourself through the standards on that page 2 of that guide in big, bold print, it just gives you a much higher chance of success. I like to think of it as that first-class ticket versus, are you coming here on a coach ticket?
Here's one other big thing. If I was giving my nephew some advice and he was leaving to SFAS, I would also say, hey, nephew, it's extremely important that you fill up a sandbag, like your duffel bag with sand, and it weighs more than 150 pounds. And you could grab this thing and put it on your shoulder and walk 50 meters, turn around and walk back, right? If you can't do that, don't go to SFAS. You're not ready to go. Foot stomp. I would also say, nephew, while you're doing those 12 pull-ups, I want you to go to like a jungle gym, right? Like where they have like those monkey bars. Go to those monkey bars, knock out your 12 pull-ups. On the 12th one, do one of those, what do you call those things where you pull yourself up? A kip up. Do a kip up and stand on top of the monkey bars and walk across the monkey bar with confidence, not like you're scared of the ground, like with confidence. And if you can't do that, nephew, don't go to SFAS. Foot stomp.
Don't be afraid of confined spaces.
Don't be afraid of confined spaces, and
you don't have to like it.
Hey, listen, I'm afraid of a lot of things, but I got to pretend like I'm not afraid of it, right? And so sometimes faking it till you make it work.
You don't have to be, you don't have to love it. You just have to tolerate it.
Yeah, you just got to tolerate it.
I've seen guys who are free fall jump masters who, if you put a ladder between two one-story buildings and they got to walk across it, they'll do it, but they hate it. And because it's more real when it's like 20 feet off the ground than if it's 25,000 feet,
Hey, brother, I'll tell you, I'll bring Lee back. When we went through dive school, they'd have us do these things called tank treads. And we'd always lie. We say that they'd make us do tank treads for like 30 minutes. That's a lie. It's very calculated down to I won't tell the time, but it was miserable. But you knew all you had to do was wait it out until someone else would start screaming and get the attention of the instructors, and then you drop your hands in the water, and now they're not looking at me, they're looking at that guy. So
Hey, you got to be smart, right?
yep.
All right, enough on preparation,
Okay.
I think.
Yeah.
But that's key.
All right.
The key is, hey, get yourself ready before you go, mentally and physically. That's on you.
Yep.
Right? What's next?
So now you're here.
Right. Now you're here.
Now you're here, and we're gonna validate that preparation. And so you'll be running in the dark. You won't know how far you're gonna go. You won't know. You won't even know whether you're running or rucking. And so back to the preparation piece, that's why I think it's important that when you're doing these rucks and these runs, that you're not attached to always listening to your iPad or an audio book, because you're not going to have any of that stuff at SFAS. And believe it or not, that does provide you like a mental stimulus, and that you won't have when you come here. And so sometimes the stimulus comes into just looking at green cones. Nick Lavery talks about this all the time, how he remembered doing the Ruck Run series at SFAS, and every time he would see a cone, it would be like a shot of adrenaline to see that. And before you know it, he passed 50, 60 cones and he was done, right? And so you'll do a series of ruck runs. You'll do some physically demanding, like WOD type workouts of the day. You'll do some strength things. You'll do our Nasty Nick O course out here. And so we'll do a week of that, right? Just validating the things that we already know that you are prepared. And that's essentially what the first week looks like. There's some mental stuff that goes in there, and really that looks like in the form of the land navigation classes. And so we'll give you classes in that first week. We'll show you, how to tie knots and how to lash things together. Basically everything that we are going to assess you on, we can't assume that you know those things. We're going to teach you those things first, and then we'll assess them. So that's what the first week of SFAS is generally like.
When I went through, the land nav was taught, but it was very much, hey, this is a draw, click. This is a hilltop, click. You put more effort in now, right? There's more done on land nav.
I would say you're going to get. I won't say the best. I would say some of the best land navigation map reading instruction you will get right here at Camp McCall from our Cadre. Through both the preparation phases and into the land nav portion of assessment.
Yeah, it was just to check the box when I went, but it's not now.
Yeah, and we definitely want a strong foundation of map reading, land navigation, because as you come to the qualification course, you're going to do a lot of patrolling at night, tactics. That foundation of land nav can't be understated. But I do want to talk of the individual phase. Chewy, he discussed a lot of the physical and the intellectual. That's where those testing really starts, is that first phase, that first week. There's an emotional component to this too, right? So I get I see the candidates typically on the left side of them showing up out here to Camp McCall. I'm typically coming back from my morning workout or run, and the buses are at Bank Hall, 200 to 300 candidates load in the white buses. They do a roll call, attendance, and you get on the bus, you come out here. And I'd say that's probably the first environment, less our X-rays. I keep hitting the table, I'm sorry.
That's all right.
But minus the X-rays. The X-rays have a preparation course. They've been together. They're familiar with the Fort Liberty area. But if you're an active duty enlisted guy coming from across the Army, this is the first time that you got off the flight, you reported here to Liberty through your recruiter, and that morning you're showed up at the ramps, and now you're mixed in with 200 plus people. You're stripped of all your name tapes, and you're just a white engineer tape with a soon to be a roster number. And I think that's where the emotion and that starts kicking in, and that intrinsic motivation and purpose to be here, because it's very easy to look around and start wondering, man, am I average? Am I good enough? And get inside your own head, right? Yeah. So I think having that training leading up to it, that strong sense of purpose, and not comparing yourself to others in that formation. It is you are on your journey, and it is the things you're going to do over the next 3 weeks that will result in a select or a non-select, right? But I think a lot of candidates maybe get inside their own head, and it really starts at that first formation before they load the buses. And into that first week, it's easy to be on a run-ruck series and kind of wonder where you are in the pack, as opposed to where you are against the standard, right? So I think there's an emotional component that can't be underestimated. I don't know if you want to kind of talk on that, because you see it, right? and it's easy to get inside your own head and compare yourself to others.
Oh, it never stops throughout selection. I remember when I was at selection and they start calling roster numbers of, hey, these roster numbers go over here and these go over here, and you're like trying to figure out which one passed and which one failed, and you're like, oh, that guy was pretty good and he's over there, so that must be the pass. And then you're like, another guy, oh, he was good and he went over. I'm like, damn, I don't know what the hell to think, but it's human nature.
Yeah, I'm a God believer. I have a strong faith in God, and if you believe in God, you also have to believe that the devil is real. And let me tell you, the devil likes to show up somewhere around like 22:30, 2400. He shows up and he's gonna tell you, "Hey man, what are you doing here?
Your knee is hurting,
dude.
You have an injury,
dude. You're like the best thing since sliced bread back at the Chinese bicycle platoon or wherever you came from, right? Like, come on, man." Pack it up.
You don't need this.
No,
this is not what you wanted to do.
Dude, there's hot chow and, they got hot cocoa with marshmallows. Like, come on, man. All you got to do is to say, hey, Sarn, this ain't for me, right? And I'll tell you, that guy's a liar. The devil's a stinking liar because that's not true. You can make it. You are here. You've been it is an honor and a privilege to just have the opportunity to come and walk on the rocks of Camp McCall. And I will tell you, there are a lot of people that don't pass the initial screening to come here. So it's a big deal. And so to us, whether you make it or not, man, we're grateful for all our candidates that they came and tried. What I always ask them is like, man, do your very best. And at the end of this, if your very best was not enough, then at the end we're giving you a good assessment of yourself, and you're gonna be a better man, a better husband, a better father, an all around just better person, just by attending. So, couple things also left of bang. So let me tell you what to do before this point. Do follow the packing list and the reporting instruction to details. That's part of the assessment process, right? So if Chewy, the Sergeant Major of Assessment and Selection, that's me, is telling you, bring cotton T-shirts, if that's what the packing list says, then bring 100% cotton T-shirts. It's probably not going to be good to wearing anything other like polyester T-shirt when it gets really hot and humid. You see, so we're trying to set you up for success. So do follow the packing list. Don't think that we are assessing your ability to be a ninja. So don't use concealment devices to bring unauthorized items. Don't do that because
you kind of have seen it all.
Yeah. We've seen it. We've seen it.
Came up with better techniques themselves.
We've seen it all, and at the end of the day, the way we just see it is like, hey, no, you're this awesome ninja. Let's just give you a tab now. No, what we're saying is you're a cheater.
Yep.
And you've already violated the one attribute, right? Integrity. And so don't compromise your integrity. Don't take notes and bring notes here. Follow the reporting instructions. So it's important for me to say that because I think that's one. And then when it comes to medical stuff, make sure that you have all your proper documentation, that you've taken care of your family and they have a will and everything's good at home. But then also that you have all the proper documentations medically so that you're able to at least start training, because we can't have you start training if you have any medical conditioning.
Yeah, you just touched on it briefly, but I've heard you say it before. Make sure your home life is in order before you come here, because you don't want that pulling you back and distracting you. If there's something going on at home, you know what I mean, that may be pulling your attention. It's funny, you talked about ninja skills. We're not evaluating your ninja skills. I think it was selection. It was selection. We did a psych eval, right? And one of the big question thing, 150 questions, and one of the questions was, do you ever see things that nobody else sees, right? That's a red flag right there, right? No. And some guy that was with me, I didn't even know him. He had to go see the shrink, man, and he came out, and I was like, what was that about? He said, on that question, he put yes. And he was like, no, it's like, I'm really good at spotting deer on the side of the road, and other people can't. I'm like, it's not an evaluation of your observation skills. He thought, oh, I'll impress them with my observation skills. Yes, I see things that
you're-
nobody else sees.
So you're saying that's why I got called into that little room?
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. So yeah, in individual week, we're really looking at your physical aspect of it, and then we're starting to dive into now the intellect, right? And so it starts a lot of fitness, and then now we're going into intellect. The vehicle that we use for that is land navigation, right? And so really that's what we're trying to see is like, can we teach you something in a controlled environment? And now we start like far left. We do a very basic land nav at the beginning of the course, and then we go into more advanced techniques. But by this point, you've had over a week of land navigation instruction, very detailed. The Cadre are in teaching mode while they're doing this, right? And then now we are giving you opportunities to test that by doing a series of practical exercises. And just like anything else in the Army is crawl, walk, run, right? And then we get to the culmination of that series, of that intellect series, which is conducting the STAR course, right? And so, you're traveling uneven terrain and you're crossing, obstacles, water obstacles. And what we want to see is that you know where you are, where you need to go, and use good decision making to pick the best route for you to get to where you need to go. That's really it. Now, if you try to dead reckon and move,
Just explain what that is.
yeah, if you try to take your compass out and shoot an azimuth of 180 degrees, and you think that you're going to walk a straight line for 10 kilometers to find your points, brother, it's going to be a long day. That means you've used poor decision making, and we don't see a lot of that, right? Because again, we teach you a lot of different techniques, and by this point, you realize through the practical exercises that is not going to work. You have to use a variety of all the tools. I won't get into all the details of all the tools because it's just a lot of information. But what we're looking is for your decision making and executing that. Now, here's the thing. Here's the crazy thing, is that typically when people fail land navigation, it's not because they don't have the intellect to be able to make good decisions. It goes back to the preparation piece. It's because they did the bare minimum physically,
Yep.
and now everything's compounding. The first week of ruck runs that we did is compounding. And now they're going uneven terrain. There's vegetation. They're trying to go through these obstacles. And sometimes you go into a draw and you'll come back out and you're like, holy cow, I came back out where I went in,
It's
right?
like a brick wall.
Yeah, and it's just it's disheartening. Your morale goes down. You hear
People start second guessing their azimuth they're on, and they get into the draw, and then they think this is where it comes out, and they end up coming back out.
But when you talk to our human performance people, especially like our trainers, the first thing that leaves you when you're physically exhausted is your ability to make good decisions. And so that's what we oftentimes see is that, I'll tell you, I'm not a smart guy. I will honestly tell you, I am a knuckle dragger, but I'm going to work my butt off. And so I have to work harder to make sure that when I have to make good decisions, I can have my wits about me and then just make the best decision that I can. So again, it goes back to the physical preparation. That's the thing that you can affect. So yeah, we do land nav, and if you meet the standard there, then we move on to the third phase, the infamous that people talk about, team week, right? Mm-hmm. And that's where
I love that picture. Old boy's got an eye patch.
He's got
That's
an
a
eye
cornea
patch.
abrasion
Yeah,
there. I got that in selection. I had a nice scratch in the woods, and I got drops for it, and it hurt. But drive on, right? That's what that is. I guarantee you. Yeah.
RSOF attribute perseverance.
Yeah, perseverance.
That's right. Mm-hmm. Those are two big things: team player, perseverance. Those are two big things that we're looking at. So number one, what does it mean to be a good team player? Man, let me give you an example of that. Just yesterday, they won a team week. I was watching one team, Team was on a struggle bus, man. But you could see they were bringing it together, and they had just gone into what we call a high carry. So they're like helping each other get the equipment on their backs to get moving. And there's one fellow that's holding a couple rifles and starting to hand them out. And he reaches in his cargo pocket. I know it wasn't pizza because we don't give out pizza here, but it looked like pizza, right? I think maybe it was like pound bread or something like that. But he takes a bite of this, whatever this is. And then he turns it around and he's walking around everyone that's like high carrying, and he's like shoving this thing in their mouth. And he's like feeding his teammates, right? And that may seem like something really small, but man, that's huge. What he is thinking about is what can I be doing? I am not carrying something heavy right now, but I want to make myself useful. And ultimately what I want is if my teammates feel like I have their back, that may be the thing that gets them past this next evolution. And so that, that's a small example of being a good team player. And, perseverance, man, I like to just say grit. It's like, this shit's going to suck, dude. It just is. Bro, I'm having you carry things that weigh as much as like a Volkswagen Bug or your Prius, Kevin, right? You drive a Prius?
I do not.
No? Oh, I'm sorry.
How dare you?
Sorry, Kevin. But they're carrying small Priuses on their back, man.
That picture on the right is going to discourage people. Dude, look at how miserable them guys.
No, I think that's gonna motivate them, man.
Yeah,
there are some people that just love that. The three of us included, right? The funny thing is, on that picture, Kevin. So you remember a few weeks ago, you came out to our Graybeard event.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
I just realized you are a Graybeard.
I am.
You were at that Graybeard.
Literally am.
You've embraced that really well, man. You've aged well. But the four guys that were the squad leaders at that Graybeard event, they actually were out with me that day. And so I don't know if you could really tell, but it's like raining sideways there.
Yeah.
It was pouring rain.
That's good. You don't overheat.
It was you don't overheat.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you, you can see it. I always say between day 2 and 3, there's this transformation of like these baby commandos that happen, where they no longer care how long you're going to drive this out. All they focus on is mission completion.
Some people get strength from that. I get strength from that. When everybody else is hurting and they look like they're about to quit, it elevates me. I'm weird.
Well, at this point, that day that I tell you, between the transformation from day 2 to 3, historically, this is just my observation since being a Sergeant Major here, is that now you're down to the people that are focused on the mission. The most important thing in Team Week, the most important thing, is completing your mission. Why? Well, just think about how we are bred, right? We don't never not complete our mission. And if the three of us are focused on accomplishing our mission, then we are not really focused on how much we are internally suffering. And so we found this one common goal thing to drive towards. And typically, day 2, 3, that's what you have. That is, guys are focused on accomplishing their mission. It sucks, so you're not gonna get a lot of smiles.
But they're no longer feeling sorry for themselves.
They're not feeling sorry for themselves, and they you even see them joking around while suffering. It gets it's. I feel honored to have had the opportunity, number one, to lead the cadre that essentially provide these opportunity for these men. But to get these candidates day in and day out and see them lay it all out on the table, successful or not successful. My favorite ones are the ones that did not make it the first time, and they've come back and they're like, hey, I remember having a conversation with you on the way out, and there's something that you said, and man, actually, I like to talk about that if that's okay with you.
Please do. Yeah, there's a lot of Green Berets in Special Forces who came back a second time to selection and a third time in some cases. And it takes a certain amount of grit to know what's coming and come back again and do it again. So hats off to those guys.
So remember, I had mentioned that when you go out to do land navigation, the reason that most people fail, like in very high numbers, in the 90 percentile, The ones that failed because they did not prepare physically. Remember me saying that? And so as folks were coming out of land nav and basically moving over to the drop tent, we said, man, is there any value in talking to these guys? And the answer immediately is, of course. Our operations sergeant, actually, Sean, he makes it a point to talk to our drops. Basically, they are his soldiers while they're here. And he spends a lot of time like shepherding them and trying to mentor them and like get them in a good headspace so that they could come back. And we said, man, you know what? We are not maximizing our opportunity to engage with soldiers. And so he shepherded this event that we now call the Next 100 Meters. And so basically the Thursday, I shouldn't say a day, the day after, 24 hours after they've been told that they are no longer continuing on at SFAS, we bring them all in a room and we share some facts with them. So at this point, they've gotten a sit-down counseling that's about 20, 25 minutes long. They were told where their performance is and what they need to work on. And they've been given a time of return, whether they can come back in 6 months, whether they can come back in a year. So they have this counseling with them, a piece of paper. And for most of them, this is the best counseling that they've gotten in their time in the Army. All right. And so, again, if there is a reason to come out to SFAS, it's because someone is going to give you a good assessment of yourself and give you a good counseling. So we give you 24 hours. We say here, at this point, you did some hard things. Anyone is entitled 24 hours to feel sorry for themselves, but not 25. And so our number one goal on the Next 100 Meters is to make sure we elevate everyone and we send them out the door knowing that we're proud of however far they've made it, we're proud of them for coming. However, you didn't come here for me to give you a pat on the back on failing. So now let's talk about how you can be successful. And so if folks want to come back to SFAS, we give them this handbook, and we talk about preparation. Our human performance and wellness program comes up. They talk about strength programs. They talk about, really your diet, because that's one thing that we've seen, that guys just, they don't have a good diet, right? They eat like garbage. And that has a lot to do with how much you're able to put out, right? And then how important sleep is in this entire cog of preparation, right? So they talk about that. Our chaplain comes up and he talks about, hey, the spiritual component of it, right? Not really from a religious point of view, but really getting after like the importance of that purpose that we talked about earlier. And so it's giving them some tools. And then on the back end of that, the SORB, the Special Operations Recruiting Battalion, which is the ones that process their paperwork to come here, they come up and they have a discussion with them, these breakout sessions on what they need to do to come back. And so we're really proud of the Next 100 Meters, and especially because we've now seen countless soldiers that have come back and have said, hey, I sat in that room, I received the information, I made an adjustment, and now I'm here at selection announcement.
Yeah. I think there's a lack of mentorship in this country for young men and young women, you know what I mean? With the right kind of mentorship and stuff like that changes people's trajectory completely. If they went in there and like it was for all of us and they said, okay, you guys passed and you guys failed, get on the bus, go back to Camp Call or go back to Fort Bragg, right? Most of those guys probably never come back, right? Or at least not in the same numbers. But if you get counseled, very detailed, you'd be like, for me, I would be like, these guys care. These guys care about me, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
This is the regiment I want to be in.
It goes back to that story that Lee shared with you and that guy Danny, right?
Yeah.
Like all we're doing is we're all just trying to be like Danny.
Yep.
And we're trying to raise future Dannys, right? And so, I totally agree with you. And here's the other piece. I didn't mention the little catch thing that we say. It's much easier to keep a current customer than it is to find a new one.
Yeah.
And those folks, those are, Those
Yeah.
are our customers.
Yep.
It's much easier to keep them and get them to come back than it would be to find somebody
They're
else.
fine Americans who want to serve their country.
Sure.
Oh, would you not want to keep them, you know? I love that, man. Okay, the other one that you wanted to talk about was on azimuth.
Yeah, on azimuth. So let's talk about the success story of being the few that have completed assessment and selection, been selected to attend the qualification course. What a beautiful day that is, right? And so, we would historically have selection announcement, and I don't want to talk too much about that because that I don't want to ruin it for future candidates.
It's a very special thing, yeah.
But we would have selection account. Now that process is more of a very deliberate rite of passage for our candidates, where we'd like to bring in respected members of the regiment. I think about one where we had America's team, ODA 3235, come in. You familiar with that team? Never heard of them? Never heard of them?
I think I worked with them.
No, but we had ODA, a third group team, 3235. The entire team came in. I mean, all members of the team. And, they wanted to tell our selects, hey, we're proud of you. Thank you for coming. It's 100% worth it. And so really rite of passage. Second to that is being able to give them some gems, right? Some good upbringing. Hey, being cool is not having a handlebar mustache, right? Like that's not why you came to SF. You didn't come to SF because you wanted a truck with a lift kit, right? Like you came to SF because you wanted to do hard things with hard people. You wanted to be challenged. You wanted to be held accountable each and every day. You wanted to be, you wanted to be part of something bigger than yourself, right? And that's the point that they drove. The cool thing is that now you see these recent selects asking specific questions to the guys that they want to be like, right? And for me to get up there and talk to those guys, man, I have not been on a team in God knows how long. When the three of us were on teams, we thought we were cool because we had like laminated GRGs that we would look at to control our frontline trace. Now these guys have like computers on their chests, and so can we really relate to this new generation? Probably not as much as the guys on the team. And so this team was able to do that. And then after that engagement, we go to dinner and we have selection dinner. And so, so you go to the chow hall, we eat.
I'm sorry, but Swick invests extra money into that, right? To make sure they have like salmon and stuff like that. It's really good. Again, nutrition is important.
Yeah.
We've invested heavily through our human performance program into our dining facilities because we realize that nutrition is a component that fuels that kind of high performance. So if you come to the DFAC here or even our DFAC back at Fort Liberty, Maine, you'd be impressed with, one, the options you have, but it's actually very hard to eat bad there. But they're definitely fueling the caloric intake you need for some of the high stress activities you're about to go do.
There's no limit to it either, right? Like the candidates, if they go through.
I'll just use this opportunity to talk about the amazing people that work here at Fort Liberty or Camp McCall, but even the dining facility, it's easy we focus on the cadre, we focus on the students, all the training goes out here. There are amazing Americans that have worked at that DFAC for decades.
Yeah.
The nice woman, as you come into the DFAC, has been there for 20 years. She has seen every candidate at some of their lowest moments in life coming through the dining facility for that one hot meal they might get on a particular day of the week. And then maybe she sees them 7 years later as a cadre here, right?
Yeah.
And so all that to say, it's a team effort that keeps this place running. It's the cadre, the GS employees, the civilians. It's just all the amazing people that go into making this thing work.
Yeah, so the photo that you're looking at on this slide up here on azimuth is Gabe, the gentleman that Lee was talking about. He was the SFAS boss here for a couple years. His bride, who is a professional of herself and leads a civilian-like organization. And so they both came up and spoke to our selects talked about balancing families and, that whole thing that we talk about as far as like work-life balance. They have two beautiful children, and they're very, very much involved in their community. But it shows, they're a great example, is that you don't have to limit yourself to anything. You could have it all. Your wife could be a professional. You can have a very successful career. You could have children, and you can volunteer your time into the community. And so having both of them host our On Azimuth event was extremely valuable. So at the end of every selection, we provide this for our candidates, and it's our way to celebrate, expose, and invest into RSOF.
Yeah, for me as a student, if I just got selected and I was in that room, it's almost the symbol of it. Like I'm getting this because now I'm being pulled into the regiment, right? And I still got to go to the Q course, but I'm in the regiment. It's a symbolic thing that I'm in the regiment now. I'm getting pulled into a family, right? And whether you know it or not, if you're in that room right there, your life is going to change drastically and move in a whole different direction. And for the people out there to think there's no way I could ever do that you can't self-select like that. I think I told you just before. I had a friend who, he's in 19th group now, and he went to selection when he was like 32 or something like that, and crushed it. And like, he's a physical stud, and he's crushed every school he's ever been to. But he told me he didn't go before because he didn't think he'd be able to make it. And when he went, he just, so he was self-selecting before he came because he thought it was this mythical thing where you've got to be freaking some sort of Greek god to get through selection. It's not. The hundreds of thousands of people have done it, you got to prepare, and you got to bring your A game, and you got to perform, but it's absolutely within your capability if you've got the right purpose, basically, right? Now, those two things, on azimuth and the next 100 meters, are great. They serve different purposes, but they both. I love what you're doing there, man.
Yeah, the thing is, number one, if you came here and you weren't successful, we want you to be successful. What does that mean? Maybe it doesn't mean you come back to SFAS, and we're fine with that. But we want you to be the best version of yourself, right? The other thing is that we also, for the next 100, we don't want you to have a false enemy. And man, let me talk a little bit about false enemies, because I've contributed to being part of the false enemy, and I'll use this as an example.
I was the false enemy too, but that's another story. Go ahead.
GWAT error. It was very common for us to be in very remote locations with very little resources to fend for yourself, right? And so the three of us have maybe been in situations where you're almost black on fuel, right? Or whatever resources you needed to do your mission. You're definitely not getting greens, and the chow hall out there does not look like the chow hall here at Camp McCall.
Chicken nuggets.
Yeah.
Maybe.
And so a negative approach that I could tell you that I've made a mistake of is making the B team the bad guy. Yeah. Or the SOTF the bad guy. To equally have an enemy, right? So that to get you through the day. That is a very dangerous thing. Because you can get very, very bitter.
Yeah, it's like a virus.
Right.
It spreads and grows.
That's right.
Within a small team, and it's very negative, yeah.
And that can happen here as well, right? Man, the cadre just did not like me, right? Or whatever excuse you've made up in your head, not because it's not true, but more importantly because you are going to spend the next however many years with this false narrative that someone is against you, and all it's doing is hurting you. It's keeping you from meeting your max potential. Yeah. And so it's important not to have, false enemies. And then for on azimuth, it's just like, hey, we want to shepherd newly selected candidates to get a good start in the qualification course, to know what right looks like from the beginning.
Yep.
Was just really excited for
It's
them.
not about having a beard and sleeve tattoos and having your hands in your pockets. It's about being a professional soldier that, like you two, right? The epitome is professionalism, and you've seen it throughout your whole career. The best unconventional warriors are good conventional warriors. The best Green Berets are really good Army guys, man, because on your uniform it says U.S. Army. You're still in the military. You're just in a different unit, right? And these guys come in that think they're going to do all these, like the pictures on the internet and all that. Guy, no sleeves on his shirt and all that. It's not what it is. It's not. Those guys are almost outcasts in the regiment, right? You got to be a professional soldier. Can we talk about the different paths, right? If I'm already in the military, in the Army, and I want to go this route, what does that look like? Or if I'm 16, 17, what's the cutoff for age, the baseline for 18 X-ray?
Yeah, I will tell you that there are just about everything is waiverable, right? And so if you're thinking about joining the Army and signing an 18 X-ray contract, go see your recruiter, grab an ASVAB book and start studying that thing, because that's your 25-meter target. Is scoring really well on your ASVAB, right? Go see a recruiter and let the Army tell you no, right?
Yeah.
Let the Army tell you no. So that's the answer that I like to give to that, because we all know that there are cutoffs for things, but everything's waiverable.
So 18 X-ray, right? That's the special forces course that takes people from the street, right? Right? And then if you're prior service, or not prior service, but if you're already in the military, you can go no matter what you are. And I remember somebody asked you a question a while ago, hey, is it a disadvantage that I'm not an infantry guy going to special forces? It's actually an advantage for the regiment, because you bring a lot to the table that infantry guys don't. And we get a lot of infantry guys in the regiment, but you were a mechanic, you know what I mean? Were you a mechanic too, both of you? Look where you are today, right? So guys in SF that wear all these different jobs throughout the Army, they bring a lot to an ODA that's in a remote location, you know? So the path for an 18 X-ray, if I want to go in and I go and I join the Army as an 18 X-ray, what do those checkpoints look like before I get here to selection?
Yeah, so let's say you are a civilian working at Applebee's, and you go, you grab that ASVAB book, you ace the ASVAB, you get an 18 X-ray contract, right? You'll ship to OSA, to infantry school in Fort Moore, and you'll go through that course. That's a 22-week course where you go from a basic trainee into really becoming a soldier.
And you visit those guys too,
We visit them every quarter. The drill instructors, big shout out to them. Holy cow. When you talk about like the backbone of the Army, man, these drill instructors are amazing. And so they are the ones that essentially are teaching these entry-level basic trainees into being soldiers, from basic soldier tasks to conditioning, proper conditioning, all of those things, and they're doing that for a 22-week period. We get to see them either week 2 or 3 of arrival.
The 18 X-rays.
The 18 X-rays. We see the 18 X-rays, but they're also in a cohort with other infantry folks, and I'll talk a little bit about that.
You're trying to steal.
We've stolen one. We've stolen once or two. So we visit them there at week 2 or 3. We'll go over to a neighboring company, and we will see them maybe in week 12 or 13, and then we typically see them on either week 20 or in 22. And so by going once a quarter, we're able to see them, and we bring them this prep guide. We give it to them early on. Say, hey, when given the opportunity to do some extra things, here you go. Go ahead and work on those things. And the drill instructors have been amazing about helping and shepherding specifically the 18 X-rays to getting on a path to success. While we are there, we also talk to the 11 Bravos that are there, and say, hey, after week 12, you'll have the option to be able to, if you have, a certain GT score and you do these things physically, you're able to sign an 18 X-ray contract. Maybe you could talk a little bit about that, Lee.
Yeah, we don't fill all the quotas. So when they hit that week 12, assuming they meet all the prerequisites, we have LNOs that work for our Special Forces proponent. They're assigned to Special Warfare Center School down there at Fort Moore. They work hand in hand with the OSIT training brigades down there. And then those individuals at week 12, if there's available contracts and you meet the eligible criteria, i.e. GT score, baseline physical fitness, they can recontract you on an 18 X-ray contract. You're given the 18 X-ray bonus upon completion of training, but and then obviously awarded an airborne school contract with that 18 X-ray contract.
Okay.
So upon completion of OSIT, they'll just go across the street to airborne school. They'll do that for 3 weeks, and then they get on a bus and travel to Fort Liberty, where 4th Battalion SWIC takes control of them, and then they start a foundations program and making sure they get in process, understand the organization, handle whatever needs they have, and then really physically start laying the groundwork to prepare them for what we call Special Forces Preparation and Conditioning course, which is one of our courses here at Echo Company. And so once they get them ready, they'll package them up, and they'll come up here to Camp McCall for a 4-week period. And we have a series of physical and mental events that essentially prepare you for a path of success at SFAS. Again, I won't talk specific numbers. What I can tell you is since that course has been here now for its 3rd iteration, we've seen a great increase in success at SFAS. So
so you're doing a couple of weeks of training that's specifically designed to get you ready for selection.
Yeah,
right, to make you successful. So if you think, oh man, all that physical fitness stuff that they talked about and all those hand release push-ups, I couldn't do that. You don't have to do it tomorrow, right? You have a lot of prep to get ready for it. And again, the focus is to make you be successful, not to weed you out.
Yeah, so right now we're specifically talking the 18 X-ray pathway, and we'll shift to the active duty enlisted kind of in-service recruits. But I do want to just, if you think of that 18 X-ray journey, that is a very long process. That is, I went from a civilian on the street to a recruiter through, taking the ASVAB and the whole MEPS process. I shipped off to 1-station unit training, 11 Bravo, airborne school, showed up here, foundations course, followed by the Special Forces prep course, followed by assessment selection. So, as you map that out in a timeline, it's a very long process. These individuals, amazing people, they give up a lot in their civilian lives to come here to try this journey. I do want to just, truth in lending here. So if you're a 24-year-old single male, the 18 X-ray program sounds awesome, right? I'm gonna do a whole lot of PT. I'm gonna get this great, strength and conditioning program. I'm gonna eat it. Come here to this all expense paid vacation at Camp McCall. I got a dining facility that I get fed. It is a great opportunity. No distractions. We eliminate every external distraction when you enter that program. For the individuals that are married, maybe you're married with children, that is a long, long process, and it goes back to that intrinsic motivation and purpose. Their families sacrifice a lot to do that. So if you are an 18 X-ray and you're married, your family cannot ship here at PCS to Fort Liberty to join you until after you get selected.
Okay.
So I just want to make sure that is a huge commitment and a sacrifice, and they still do it. And for them and their families, I don't want to discourage them, but man, I want to make sure that they know what they're getting into ahead of time, because that is a big commitment and a burden on those families. But I'll tell you, it'll make them stronger at the end, and way more resilient, because they go through that process together.
Yeah, but once you pass selection and you're on the Q course for a year or whatever, your family is here with you.
Your family joins you for the qualification course, but all the way from, there's some touch points they can come visit, see on weekends and things like that. But that is a good year-long kind of separation for your family between all that training. With maybe some periodic 4-day weekends, a block of leave here and there. But I just want to make sure that they are aware of that if somebody is out there listening and thinking of it.
Lee talked about how there's some pretty remarkable people. I can't say that enough, right? I don't like to say that, our in-service folks, like I was one of them, they bring a lot to the table, extremely important. But our off the street 18 X-ray population, brother, they're not chopped liver either. Some of these guys are leaving like corner offices in like very tall buildings, and in some cases they're leaving like lucrative salaries, right? I'll talk about one in particular. He's actually out at Team Week right now. So I met him at SFPC, the prep course, about a month ago. This young man was a defensive end at a very well-known football school.
He's probably carrying the Team Week thing on his own. I want to be on his team.
This kid, when he was playing collegiate level football, he's the defensive end. He weighed about 250 pounds. I seen a photo of him. He's a big kid. He finishes school, and all his buddies are going into corner offices, and he just doesn't have a passion for that. And like Green Beret was always like in the back of his head. So he goes home, and he's hanging out with his parents, trying to figure things out. And he's like, I think I'm gonna do this thing, right? And so, he goes, he sees a recruiter, and he's like, man, I read up and I saw some podcasts, and oh man, you got to do some running, like long distance running. So let me go validate that, see how far off I am. So he has this like little Garmin watch. He starts his watching. He makes it about 2 blocks, and then he stops. He's like, oof.
Not built for running.
He pauses. He pauses his watch. He looks down at his watch. He's like, holy a quarter mile. So he knew he was on this journey, man. And he's like, he took his time. It was a year for him before he shipped. So he took his time. He got down to, I think he said he's about 192 right now. So he shed some weight. So he was in shape. He was just in a different type of shape. Yep. Man, that showed commitment. That showed perseverance. He's one of many that I'm pulling for right now. I'm sure I'm pretty confident that he'll be successful. And if he's not right now, I'm sure he'll come back and he'll see that through. But that's one of like many stories that you get to hear. Yeah. And that's really powerful. And then you get, I'll leave it up to you to decide on whether this one makes it. But it's important to me that I say it because it's been in my heart. We had a young man attend about 8-9 months ago, and he was out at Land Nav, and we had to pull him out of Land Nav because he lost his bride while he was here, and we had to deliver that news. The three of us have been on that end of it before. For me, it was different in the sense that this was a very young man who he and his bride had their whole family ahead of him, and it just hurt to see him hurt. His unit was amazing. They sent a soldier out, very senior guy that was connected to him to make sure he brought him home. We were with him the entire time here. Our NCOIC answered the phone on the second ring of a phone call I made to him at 1:30 in the morning, and was here within hours. And we just loved on this guy while he was here, and got him on home to bury his bride. Right. About 3 months after that, I get a text from this young man. He's like, "Hey, I think my bride would want me to go back. I think I want to go back." And so I called him. We talked about it. Said, "Hey, just make sure you prepare and we'd be happy. We're always going to be here. It's just when you're ready." I'd be happy to tell you, last class, I got to shake hands with him, and give him a big old hug and have a good conversation. And yeah, he's going to be attending the qualification course this summer. So
Wow. Yeah.
yeah, I don't know if that's appropriate or not, but I think
Hey,
it's important to be real with you, and I just want to be real with you.
Yeah. I mean, that's resilience, right? But having a coming back and getting himself back into this, you know what I mean, gives him a sense of purpose, right? Instead of sitting at home.
And again, like there's in tragic moments, there are times of like beautiful things, right? And so, when I reached out to his sergeant major and his first sergeant, like the amount of information that they knew about this junior soldier was amazing. Their response, by the way, this was over a weekend, like a 4-day weekend. They're all 4 different directions. And, when you think of a big Army unit, it's not like special operations that we have like a travel specialist down at the team level. So we can draft up orders and have a plane ticket within an hour. That's not the case with, conventional Army units. But, man, they made arrangements so quick. It was very, very impressive to see. And so, we're obviously huge advocates for special operations. But, man, the Army's a beautiful place, too.
Guys, I appreciate you being here. That was tons of information. If you have questions for these guys, put them down in the comments, and I'll get them to them, I promise. I got 2 things, and I'm going to ask you for closing comments, both of you, okay? The first thing is, sometimes people will say, well, I want to go to Special Forces, but I really like my civilian job. National Guard. It's like the best kept secret in the Army, man. You can be a Green Beret and keep your regular job. And a lot of people do that, right? Same pipeline, same training, same everything. But when you graduate the qualification course, you go home, you keep your job, and then you go to 19th or 20th group in your National Guard. You deploy, you go to schools, you do all kinds of stuff. It's actually a really, really good deal if you've got a civilian job that you really like. Then the other thing is, there's a lot of misinformation out there. Is 2 of my kids, people have asked me, would you want your kids to join the Army? 2 of my kids are in the Army, right? Well, my son is an intel analyst, NCO, and my daughter is military police, but she's in the reserve, right? So she goes periodically. She just did 2 back-to-back deployments to the Middle East on a PSD detachment. So yes, I would want my kids to go in the Army. I think it's a great place, and it doesn't have to be a lifelong commitment. You can go in, do 3-4 years, and get out, and you figure out where you are in life, who you want to be, get some money for college, get some leadership, get some work ethic and training. It's great. One of the myths too is that if you're in Special Forces, you'll never see your family. It's not true. Yes, we deploy. Yes, we train a lot, and yes, we work hard. But we do have a lot of time off, and we have benefits that some people in the regular Army don't have, and especially now, very, very family focused, right? And there's dwell time where you have to, you can't, like during the war, like we were gone, right? But now there's brackets you have to meet where you have to be home a certain amount of time, right? So there's pros and cons to everything, every job out there. And if you're in a job that you hate, even if it's well paid, what good is money if you're miserable? So if you've been thinking about this for a while and you're willing to do the work, then maybe this is a path for you. You should take a second look at it, and maybe this is a path for you, and it will change your life for the better. And I have no regrets about anything I've done, but it'll put you in a whole new path and bring you into a kind of regimented family, and you will PT every day for the rest of your career. And you'll go to some amazing places and do some really cool stuff. So, closing arguments, Chewy?
Yeah, so, for our in-service population, and I only share this because I've heard more than a few people mention it. The reason that they have not come to SFAS is because their spouse may not... is afraid that they may not see them because of their deployment cycle or the frequency of deployment. What I would first tell you is, yes, we deploy often. but we historically don't deploy for really long periods of time, right? And there is, in our professional military education and career track, there are penciled in time frames. For example, right now, I have a company of Cadre that are right at that middle management time where although they work hard, they know all of the courses that they're doing for the next 3 years and when those courses are taking place. So what we provide at SWIC is predictability so that you can have that reset time for your family if they need that. The other thing, the pro to that, is depending on which group you get assigned to, you are probably going to be assigned there for the rest of your career. Unless you got to come to SWIC or what have you, but you're going to be, at Fort Carson for the rest of your career, or you're going to be at Eglin Air Force Base for your entire career. And so the pro to that is that your family is able to integrate within community. Most of us, so for example, myself, Michelle and I have 6 kids. Her mom and dad moved here 13 years ago when we had Clara, and they've been here ever since. And that is very common within special forces to have, family members come out of wherever they're from and move into the community because they know that they're going to be here probably for the rest of their careers. So just like there are some challenges, there's more pros than anything else. And one more thing I'd like to say is, man, there's been many times where, something's happened with one of my kids and they need to get to see a specialist. And, you make one call or two, and next thing you know, your kid gets an appointment that day or the next day. And so, there's a lot of things that are not talked about, but that we are all well familiar with that come with benefits of being in this high-tempo organization.
First, Kevin, thanks for taking the time to come here and talk to us, and then you help carry kind of this message for us. So first, I'll just say, just being here at SWIC, Camp McCall, assessment selection. Every time I drive out here, I get a little anxious and a little excited at the same time. And something about this camp and this ground, it is a piece of history. It's a piece of Army history. It's a piece of Army Special Operations history, right?
It's funny. When you come out here now, it's changed a lot, but in ways it hasn't changed at all.
No, and I wish the pine trees could talk, right? The stories that they could tell. But the airborne trained here in World War II. We run our assessment selection, and you think of all the people that have walked the grounds here at Camp McCall, the amazing stories and people that have come through here. And I say that we talked a lot about the process and the things you're going to get tested on and what you do, but really I like to kind of distill it down to what do we do at the Special Warfare Center in school and really across the Army. We take in raw material in the form of human capital. And we take in that raw material, human capital, and we run it through a little bit of this assessment selection, this training process, and then we develop it over a career, whether that career is 5 years or 20 years. And on the backside of that, we push a veteran out into society that's going to contribute to their community in a meaningful way. We didn't just come here to join the Army. We didn't just come here to get some things and leave. The people that this community draws, the Army, the Special Operations, we invest in it heavily, and we invest in their families. And on the backside, they're the kind of people that you want to live next to. They're the people you want to be your neighbor in your community doing things, because it just attracts amazing, amazing people. So, of course, you're going to come here. You're going to do some awesome things. You're going to get some good training. You're going to get some things and go places that, quite frankly, you won't do anywhere else. And you have 2 kids in the Army. My daughter commissions this summer. I absolutely would encourage any young American out there to give this a shot. We were all career professional soldiers. Whether you come here for a 20-year career or a 5-year career, you're going to leave here better than you came, right? And you're going to get a ton of training, a ton of leadership, and it's going to open up doors and opportunities outside of service that you won't find anywhere else. There's going to be a veteran network that is always going to treat you differently because you're a veteran. They know whether you were in the Navy and I'm in the Army, there's a shared hardship, a struggle that we all go through that community is an amazing thing to be a part of. What does that look like? As I describe it, well, I'm sitting here at a table, 20 plus years ago when I came to assessment selection, I had no idea that I was going to meet a Chewy Almonte and a Kevin Owens, but I am sitting here. The things the Army and this career has done for me and my family is just amazing. I'm much better off as a husband, as a father, as a person because of the Army, because of Special Forces, and I'm at a table with two men that I deeply admire. When I was a team sergeant in B-23 and I looked down the hallway at a 2-5, Master Sergeant Kevin Owens was a guy I wanted to be like, was a great leader, a great person. And, we've made that connection, that relationship, and that friendship because of this community, because of the Special Forces. And similarly with Chewy, right? Like, I don't end up at a table talking to you two about assessment selection had I not joined the Army 20 plus years ago. And all the things that I've done, it was the relationships and the people you meet are really what make this whole thing worth it. So if you're looking for that purpose, that why, don't do it for a cool piece of headgear or a cool piece of kit. Do it because you're not just joining an organization, you're joining a culture and you're joining a family, and it extends way beyond your service. So anybody out there that's thinking about it, I would encourage them to do it. And no kidding, if they have any questions, put a comment in Kevin's section. Give him my phone number. I don't care. I'll talk to anybody about it because I'd love to attract people to come here because it's an amazing, amazing thing.
Yep. I can't top that. That's why he's the CSM right there.
That's why he's the boss.
All right, guys. Hey, thanks for listening if you stuck with us this long. And I'd like to do another one of these about advanced skills sometime with you guys because once we get through that Q course, then we go. What's it like on a team? What all these free fall schools and sniper schools and all these things we do. I think that would be quite interesting too.
Let's go.
Because this is just a start, right? But I appreciate you guys sitting down and talking. Hit us up with questions and thanks for hanging in there. Okay, bye.
Thanks, Kevin.